Because I work in tech, my life is like building this very complex distributed system to move like drivers and riders around. And I was like, why couldn't there be an easier way? And so it's that juxtaposition between my reality, which is I work in tech, I use like really good software, and the fact that I'm working on this like side hustle. I moved into multifamily. In 2019, we bought a 172-unit apartment complex in Dallas. I was the lead syndicator. I raised 3.5 out of the $4.3 million on that deal. In 2020, we bought a 408 unit. And in 2021, we bought a 236 unit. I was the lead sponsor on both of them. And 2018 is where I used DocuSign for all of my signatures. 2020, that's when I used a behemoth large syndication software for our raise. And in 2021, I used my own software for the raise. At the time, I couldn't disclose to my LPs that I owned the company because I was still working at Lyft. But my LP said that whatever you're using this time is better than what you used last time. And that was the impetus for me to quit my job. We got into Y Combinator, one of the most prestigious incubator programs in Silicon Valley. Now we have about 25, 30 employees, and we have about 350 customers and more than 6,000 LPs on the platform.
That's pretty cool. So you were a syndicator first, basically before you started developing your own portal. Now, you're not to say what portal it was, but what were some of the frustrations that you were facing that basically made you create your own software? Like, what were some of the frustrations you had with other software?
The first frustration is our first deal, there were 72 investors. So that means I create 72 DocuSigns. I was smart enough to create what's called a power form in DocuSign, and which allows them to put in their first name, last name, and automatically populate. But that's still not good enough because you have to create 4 of those. There's the individual investor, IRA investor, joint tenancy investor, and LLC investor. And once they fill that out, I need to countersign it manually, and then I need to send them the wire instructions manually. Then I check my bank every day to find out who has wire, and then send them another manual email saying that the money has been received. Then if they want to change any of their email address, they have to contact me through email. I change it on my spreadsheet. If they want to change their bank account, I need to go back to my spreadsheet. Now, it's not that big of a problem if I don't work in tech, because I work in tech and my life is like building this very complex distributed system to move like drivers and riders around. And I was like, why couldn't there be an easier way? And so it's that juxtaposition between my reality, which is I work in tech, I use like really good software, and the fact that I'm working on this like side hustle and the software is not up to bar.
Yeah, it's interesting. It reminds me of the old days when we used to raise money the same way. We used DocuSigns and spreadsheets, and it was great up until I don't know how many investors. This was probably even before you came on, Garrett. But it becomes untenable for the reasons you just mentioned. I mean, in general, what is your advice on when a syndicator should start looking at, investor management software?
Great question. I think one of the things we do really well is I like to put on my syndicator hat on, take folks through that journey. So this is basically the advice for someone who's new, starting out. I believe if you are starting out, the first thing is you actually need a spreadsheet. And that spreadsheet contains the first name, last name of people you know. And there's a column that indicates how much equity you can raise from that person, expected value. You should be able to derive that value without explicitly asking that prospective LP how much they will invest, because that kind of ruins it, right? But based on your one-on-one conversation with them, you have an approximate idea. And that spreadsheet should add up to about $1 million expected raise amount, because then you are more confident going out to other syndicators and say, this is how much I can raise, right? And that does not require any software. I think that's actually more important than anything you do. Then the next step is to kind of branch out into 2 separate areas. One is a very powerful marketing CRM, and people usually use MailChimp, HubSpot, or ActiveCampaign. I've seen those very, very frequently in our industry. And MailChimp is especially nice because if someone else is using MailChimp and they want to share the template with you, it's a click of a button. But if you almost use anything else, then you have to transcribe those messages from one software to the next software, right? Which is not that at the end of the world if you want to do that. So that's the marketing piece. The second piece is a website. A website usually has your investment philosophy. It also has a link called investor portal. And then it also has like, how do you get in contact with the team? And the website, there are a bunch of different website providers, Squarespace, Wix, even like Apartment Investing Pro.com that provides those software. And that's actually the easiest part, right? Like you can get it set up in like a day or 2 days. On that website, there's usually a button that says Investor Portal, and which takes you to a white label, your brand, custom brand investor portal. Why is that useful? That's useful to get extra lead generations that you can add to your investor database, and it's your job to talk to them before you have your next deal, right? And that's where we come in, where the investor portal. So those will be the three things, but they are all secondary importance than having a spreadsheet that gives you a grounded bird's eye view of how much money that you can realistically raise.
Yeah, I think for us, once we got to like 50 investors, it started getting really tedious, right? For the reasons you just mentioned earlier. I mean, just the simplest things start getting very complicated. I mean, just managing the investment process, and then, like you said, oh, I want to change my email address, or then, distributing the K1s or even the monthly reports. All those things are manual. And at one point that's when we start looking at investor portals, and they automate a lot of these tasks and they make them a lot easier than piecing these things together. But in general, what are some of the benefits of using a portal? I mean, obviously there's time saving benefits, and there's really two people that benefit. One is the syndicator, right? Because we want to make our lives easier, but also you mentioned earlier the investor. So give us some examples of how a portal benefits both the syndicator and the investors.
Sure. Let's talk about from the LP perspective, why is a portal useful? A portal is useful because first, it's a system of record that is secure and that you can log into to see how your investment is doing. So one is security. The other one is just a sense of safety that like, hey, this money shows up somewhere, right? Like it's not like amorphous, right? So that's that. And then if you invest or plan to invest in multiple syndications, it's actually also important to capture that data so you can use the same information to invest from one deal to the next deal. You don't want to be logged into like 6 different websites at the end to get 6 different K1s. You want to be able to log into one website that happens to have all the syndicators that you invest with and all their K1s. In fact, it will be really cool if you have a button that just merges all the K1s into a single K1. But we're talking about the future here. LP wants to manage their finances. Real estate is one part of their finance. So you put ourselves in their perspective. Their entire life doesn't revolve around real estate per se. It's a small part of their capital allocation. And they don't want that small part to be bifurcated into like 6 different portals that they have to get, any kind of financial instrument, financial reporting on their investments. That's for the LPs. Now for the GPs, it's a uncountably many benefits of having a portal. I don't even imagine that any syndicator now tries to raise anything more than $5 million without a portal. The number one thing is saving time. The second thing is just looking professional, right? If you do a pen and paper, there is the sense that like, is this investment for real? Is this legit, right? What does my money go? All right. And then the third part is this idea of collaboration with your teammates. A lot of deals right now have co-sponsors or co-GPs, and they want to see their set of investors, and you want to see your set of investors. When you send out emails, you want to make sure that depending on the co-GP's preference, whether those emails will go directly to their LPs or they have the choice of editing it before they go out to their LPs. And you also want to make sure that you don't see their investors' email address and so on. So when you get into it, it's, yeah, you can do accounting too on a spreadsheet, but it doesn't have the permissioning, it doesn't have the structured data, and it doesn't have the sense of professionalism, as we are the QuickBooks for real estate syndication.